A single word. That was all it took. One quiet, stubborn no, spoken to the most powerful man in the land. And the ground beneath an entire kingdom began to crack. Picture it. Dawn light sliding across cold stone walls. A courtyard inside a fortress. Lords and ladies stand frozen, barely breathing. In the middle of it all rises a low wooden platform. A man from France waits there, sword thin and gleaming. A woman in a plain dark gown climbs the steps alone. No tears. No cries for mercy. She kneels. She looks out at the faces watching her die. Then she does something almost impossible. She praises the king who ordered this. She prays for him. She asks God to keep him safe on the throne. The sword rises. One clean stroke. And the woman who rewrote England is gone. Her name was Anne Boleyn, Queen of England, mother of a legend. And the price she paid for saying no still echoes through every page of history that followed. But how does a girl with almost no power force a king to tear his country apart? How does one refusal reshape a nation for centuries? Stay with me, because nothing about this story is simple, and the ending will surprise you. Anne entered the world around 1501. Exact day unknown. Her family climbed fast through ambition and sharp minds. Father Thomas worked as a diplomat for the crown. Mother Elizabeth came from the powerful Howard line. There was an older sister, Mary, a brother named George. When Anne was barely 12, her father sent her across the sea, first to the Netherlands, then deep into the glittering heart of the French court. That court was the center of everything elegant in Europe. Music, poetry, fashion, ideas. For 7 or 8 years, and soaked it all in. She learned French until it flowed like her own tongue. She mastered the dance floor, the lute, the art of speaking, so the whole room leaned closer. She watched the cleverest women use their minds, not just their faces, to move kings and princes. By the time she sailed home to England in the early 1520s, she carried something rarer than beauty. Presence. Dark eyes. Dark hair. A long, graceful neck. People noticed when she entered a room. One of them was Henry VIII. Henry stood tall in an age of shorter men. Red-haired. Strong. He hunted, jousted, composed music, argued theology in Latin. Charm could light up a hall. Rage could empty it. He already had a wife, Catherine of Aragon, Spanish princess, intelligent, deeply faithful. Nearly 20 years of marriage. One living child. A daughter. Mary. And that was the wound that never healed. Henry needed a son. England had bled through the Wars of the Roses only a generation before. Without a male heir, he feared the throne would shatter again after he was gone. A boy meant survival. Everything else was secondary. Around 1526 the king noticed Anne. He wanted her the way he had once wanted her sister Mary, as a mistress. Mary had said yes, and said no. She would not share his bed without a crown. She would not be used and discarded. She told him, in effect, queen or nothing. Can you feel the danger in that answer? This was the King of England. One word from him could ruin her family, lock her away, destroy her name. Yet she held her ground. She knew her value, and she bet everything on it. Henry had never heard no, not like this. Shock turned into obsession. The woman he could not possess became the only one he wanted. He wrote desperate letters, some still kept today in the Vatican. He begged for her body and heart. He said her absence hurt more than he thought possible. He drew hearts around her initials, and answered carefully, politely, firmly. She waited. Power lived in the waiting. Slowly the king's desire hardened into a plan. Divorce Catherine. Marry Anne. No one would stop him. Not the Pope. Not the Church. Not the greatest rulers of Europe. But the Pope said no. Catherine's nephew was Charles V, Holy Roman Emperor, the strongest man on the continent. His armies had already marched on Rome. The Pope was trapped. He would not free Henry from Charles's aunt. 6 years of begging, negotiating, threatening. Nothing moved. So Henry did what no English king had dared. With his ruthless lawyer Thomas Cromwell at his side, he cut England free from Rome. He declared the Pope had no power here. The act of supremacy made Henry himself the supreme head of a brand new Church of England. Refuse the oath, and you were a traitor. Traitors died. Monasteries closed. Church lands seized. The religious map of the nation was ripped up and redrawn almost overnight. Think about that. An entire country changed its faith, not from some great spiritual awakening, but because one king wanted one woman who refused to settle for less. And Boleyn's no had started a chain reaction that would reshape England and the world for centuries. In January 1533, they married in secret. By May, the new archbishop declared the old marriage void. On the 1st of June, Anne was crowned queen at Westminster Abbey in gold and jewels. She was already carrying the child Henry was certain would be his long-awaited son. September 7th, 1533. The baby arrived. A girl. They named her Elizabeth. Henry's disappointment was bitter. A daughter felt like failure. He could not know, no one could, that this tiny infant would one day rule as one of the greatest monarchs England ever saw. And tried again. At least 2 more pregnancies. Both ended in heartbreak. One, in January 1536, was a boy. Lost. Henry's eyes had already drifted to a quiet, pale young woman named Jane Seymour. Gentle, obedient, everything, and was not. He needed a way out. The men around him built one. Thomas Cromwell engineered the fall. In May 1536, Anne was arrested and taken to the Tower of London, the same fortress where she had slept the night before her own coronation 3 years earlier. The charges, adultery with 5 men, including her own brother George. Plotting the king's death. Almost. Certainly lies. Historians agree the evidence was invented. Confessions forced. The trial was theater. The verdict was written before the first word was spoken. May 15th. Guilty. Death. In her last days inside the tower, she swung between hope and dark humor. At times she believed Henry might still spare her. At others she joked about the executioner. "I heard he is very good," she said, laughing, "and I have a little neck." She touched her throat and laughed again. May 19th, 1536. She walked to the scaffold. Henry's one mercy, a skilled French swordsman instead of the heavy English axe. She spoke calmly. She praised the king. She forgave the ones who condemned her. She knelt, closed her eyes. One stroke. It was finished. They buried her quickly, without ceremony, in an unmarked grave inside the chapel of St. Peter ad Vincula. No monument. She was about 35. Her daughter Elizabeth was 2 years and 8 months old. The little girl would grow up with almost no memory of her mother. Declared illegitimate. Erased, as if and had never worn the crown at all. 11 days later, Henry married Jane Seymour. She gave him the son he craved, Prince Edward, then died 12 days after the birth. Henry would marry 3 more times. 6 wives in all. The famous rhyme still runs: divorced, beheaded, died, divorced, beheaded, survived. But history keeps its own accounts. 22 years after Anne's death, her daughter took the throne. Queen Elizabeth I. She defeated the Spanish Armada. She watched English literature flower into a golden age. She ruled 45 years with sharp mind and iron will. She never married. Once she told her court she was already wed to the kingdom of England itself. Many believe that choice grew from the shadow of her mother. Elizabeth had learned early what happened when a queen's power depended on a king. She chose to depend on no one. For most of her life, she wore a ring with a secret. After her death, they opened it. Inside, two tiny portraits, one of Elizabeth, one of Anne Boleyn. She had carried her mother with her, quietly, for decades, and never saw any of it. Yet she left two things that still stand. The Church of England, born from a king's desire, now one of the largest Christian families on earth, and a daughter who became a legend. She could have said yes. She could have taken the easier path, lived safely as a mistress, avoided the blade. She believed she was worth more. She stood her ground even when that ground finally broke beneath her. The crown she won became the reason she died. But what she built did not vanish. Her church endured. Her daughter endured. The courage of that single word endured. And somewhere inside that story lives a truth that still speaks. The world will always offer the comfortable choice, the quiet yes that costs less. Sometimes the harder answer is the one that changes everything. And Boleyn paid the highest price for refusing to settle. Yet the daughter she left behind turned that sacrifice into something greater than any king could have imagined. History remembers the woman who said no. And the little girl who made that no mean something forever.